Welcome to Flash Fiction from Giant's Reach by Steve Cook. Hey, and welcome back to the podcast. I had a great weekend last weekend, LARPing with my new character Stefan. He's a sneaky snack. That was great fun. And now I'm back to writing podcasts for you. So I hope you enjoy this new episode. The Dimming, Part 1. The effect was subtle. So subtle, in fact, that had Joanna been around to see it, she might have missed it. Like ivy growing up around an old house, the rot set in. He wasn't there to greet her as she got off the train. That was the first sign, she later realised. When she'd finished the lonely walk back through the cobbled streets to her house, there he was, tilling their little vegetable patch. Brock? The badger started, turning around in the narrow garden. It was hemmed in by fences that pressed at his ample sides, matting his fur with the rain that had only stopped an hour earlier. "Joanna, I was just wondering where you had been." The badger trundled over to her and nuzzled her affectionately, smearing mud on her cheek. She pushed him away, grinning. "I must have lost track of time," he said, "or I'd have come to the station. I'm sorry." "No apology needed," she said, throwing her bag against the front door and sitting on the step. "Anything interesting happen while I was gone?" Brock sat down and scratched absently at the skin near his gem. "Post. I put it on the table. New delivery system for the dust. We have to pick it up from the church now, weekly. It's different. Tastes nicer, though. Mrs. Higgins from up the road, she popped round with some bread this morning. I put it in the cupboard." He gave her his approximation of a smile and nudged up against her again. "It's good to see you, though. I didn't think you'd be gone this long." She shrugged. "Centrum and back still takes a full day, and I didn't know I'd need to stay the couple of days extra. Mother's doing better, though. I'll have to check up on her in a week." The badger looked at her for a moment, blinking slowly. "Your mother, yes. Consumption, wasn't it?" Joanna shook her head. "No, the chemics reckon it's yellow lung after all. Anyway," she smiled, "I must get settled back in. Work are expecting me tomorrow, I'm sure." She went inside and straight upstairs to the floor that only she could access. The lower floor of all the terraced houses was uplift accessible, but the stairs had proven too much of a structural challenge for the cheap building materials. That would change, though. Little Grange was still new, after all, the ink on the map still wet. When she went to get the bread out, though, she paused. It was an old loaf, specks of mould dotting its dark brown crust, and the post was underneath it. "Bread's mouldy." She waved the loaf towards the window to where Brock was still sat in the garden. The badger didn't respond, simply stared up at the sky. "Brock?" "I said, are you okay?" "I'm fine," the badger said, blinking golden eyes at her. "Why?" Slowly, Joanna placed the loaf down on the table. "No reason," she said after a moment. "I can probably cut the mouldy bits off or something." The badger mumbled something and went back to staring. A day later, another message from Centrum arrived. The delivery hawk stood awkwardly off to the side as she read it, a sort of iron-hard panic wrapping itself around her heart. "I can take an answer back," the hawk said, "if you want." No, thank you for waiting." Joanna reached into her pocket for a coin, but the hawk shook his head. "No need for that. Take care on your way to the city." He hopped a couple of steps away before spreading his wings and taking to the sky. Stopping only to write a note for Brock, who had left before sunup to go to the farm, Joanna hurriedly packed her things. It wasn't until she checked that the back door was locked that she saw him, sitting, staring. She rattled the door open again, every other thought sliding to a halt. "Brock, what? Have you been out here all night?" The badger turned around, ears flicking up. A while, I guess. It's beautiful, you know. Joanna looked back at her repacked bag leaning against the kitchen cupboards. I think we need to get you inside, she said, attempting to nudge his elbows like she might an old or blind person. I've got to get back to Centrum. Mother's worse, much worse overnight. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Brock said. Is it consumption? Brock, enough, Joanna said. What is wrong with you? I'm fine, the badger said, smiling. Feel pretty good, actually. Might tackle the veg patch. You're supposed to be at the farm, Joanna said. It was impossible to shepherd the giant uplift anywhere. He was simply too heavy. Your job, remember? Oh, I forgot, Brock said, slapping one claw to his white-striped temple. What will they think of me? Without waiting for her to say anything, he squeezed down the alley between their house and their neighbours, and away down the street. All Joanna could do was stare after him as he dawdled away. What happened while I was gone? She murmured. You've been listening to flash fiction written for my Patreon, Giant's Reach. If you'd like to become a supporter, go to patreon.com/Giant's Reach, where you can find more fiction just like this,